The closing of the Toys R Us flagship store occurred in March 2018. At that time, the last customers purchased remaining items at discounted prices as operations concluded. The company had once held 25% of the U.S. toy market, maintained 1,600 stores, and achieved $13 billion in annual revenue. The company's decline was not attributable solely to Amazon or to Walmart. It resulted from a combination of internal factors and market shifts. These factors included the transition from the founder's original vision into corporate complacency, the financial impact of a 2005 leveraged buyout that placed $5 billion in debt on the company, and the failure to adapt in a timely manner to the growth of online retail. This case provides an example of how business power is built and can be undermined. The founder established an empire through a clear understanding of market needs. Subsequent decisions under different ownership structures affected the ability to respond to new competitive realities. Private equity involvement introduced financial pressures that influenced strategic options. The narrative of Toys R Us demonstrates the importance of maintaining strategic adaptability as market conditions evolve. It shows how early advantages in retail can diminish when timing and execution in response to change are not aligned. This analysis covers the rise and fall of Toys R Us from a strategic and operational perspective. In 1948, in Washington, D.C., Charles Lazarus, after returning from World War II, observed the baby boom and its implications for retail demand. He opened Children's Bargain Town in his father's bicycle shop using a $5,000 loan. The initial focus was on baby furniture, such as cribs, strollers, and high chairs. These items were typically purchased once per child, leading to limited, repeat business from individual customers. Lazarus identified a key market dynamic. Children frequently destroy or outgrow toys, creating ongoing demand for replacements. This characteristic made toys a category with strong repeat purchase potential. In the early 1950s, he shifted the business focus toward toys, incorporating cheap imports from Japan to meet this demand. Customer traffic increased as a result of this pivot by 1957. The first dedicated Toys R Us store opened in Rockville, Maryland. The location was a 10,000 square foot facility designed like a warehouse or supermarket, featuring concrete floors and shopping carts. Aisles were filled floor-to-ceiling with a wide range of toys. The logo featured a backwards R, conveying a childlike quality. The approach emphasized abundance of selection and the concept of unlimited choice for childhood products. Surly growth involved challenges. In 1966, the company was sold to Interstate Stores to enable national scaling. When Interstate filed for bankruptcy in 1974, Lazarus worked to preserve the toy division through the Chapter 11 process. The company emerged in 1978 as Toys R Us, Inc. and subsequently went public. This established the category killer retail model, which relied on extensive product selection, strong buying power from high volume, and pricing that smaller competitors could not match. Geoffrey the Giraffe was introduced as mascot in the late 1960s. Accompanied by a memorable jingle V, strategy succeeded because it aligned with consumer psychology. Parents experienced satisfaction from providing extensive options, while children encountered a space dedicated to their interests. Lazarus applied a calculated understanding of buyer behavior to develop a scalable retail format centered on toys. The 1980s and 1990s constituted a period of significant expansion and market dominance for Toys R Us. The company applied a consistent operational strategy. It used its high purchase volumes to negotiate advantageous terms with manufacturers. The resulting cost savings were reflected in customer pricing. This pricing advantage drove higher sales, which in turn supported further volume purchases and reinvestment in store growth and product assortment. By the mid-1990s, Toys R Us accounted for 20 to 25% of the U.S. toy market. The company operated more than 1,000 stores in the United States and pursued international expansion in Canada, the United Kingdom, Europe, and Asia. The development of Babies R Us and Kids R Us extended the business into a comprehensive retail system covering various life stages from infancy onward. The 2001 opening of the Times Square flagship store represented a $35 million investment. This store included entertainment elements such as a Ferris wheel, an animatronic dinosaur, and an indoor arcade. These features positioned the retailer as an experiential destination in addition to a product seller. The scale of operations gave Toys R Us substantial influence over toy manufacturers. Brands like Mattel, Hasbro, and Lego depended on shelf space in these stores to reach consumers effectively. The retailer's platform also enhanced the impact of television advertising, contributing to the commercial success of specific toy lines such as Star Wars figures, Cabbage Patch Kids, and Nintendo products. Toys R Us did not only distribute toys, it influenced which products achieved widespread cultural recognition. Consumer patterns demonstrated the strength of the model. Families traveled extended distances to benefit from the selection and value offered. The stores became central to birthday celebrations and other family events. The Geoffrey the Giraffe character and associated jingle reinforced brand recognition across generations. Key metrics at this stage included peak revenue of $13 billion, approximately 18,000 stock-keeping units per store, and a global total of 1,600 locations. Charles Lazarus stepped back from day-to-day involvement in the mid-1990s, while Street analysts viewed the company favorably as a leading example of the category killer retail format. This phase established clear competitive advantages in selection, pricing, and market presence. However, the same elements that supported this growth would later interact with changing market conditions in ways that tested the company's adaptability, its highest point in the late 1990s to early 2000s. Toys R Us represented the primary force in the toy industry. Malls incorporated the stores as anchor locations. Holiday sales periods determined financial outcomes for manufacturers such as Hasbro and Mattel. The brand formed part of the common experiences for American children born between 1970 and 2005, who recalled entering the stores as a distinctive environment. The business model aligned well with the conditions of its time. Physical retail provided limited selection in other locations. Parents had available income, and online competition had not yet developed substantially. Even as Walmart and Target increased their presence in the late 1990s, Toys R Us maintained its position through the premium nature of its store experience. The 2001 Times Square store served as an indication of the strength of retail as entertainment rather than price alone. The internal culture reflected a sense of lasting strength. Leadership viewed the established model as sufficient for future challenges. The company appeared as the dominant force in its sector. This represented the most challenging point for any business, where the appearance of permanence can reduce the incentive for ongoing evaluation of market changes. The initial signs of pressure appeared gradually. In 1998 and 1999, Walmart surpassed Toys R Us as the largest toy retailer in the United States. It achieved this by treating toys as loss leaders, placing them alongside other household items to drive overall store traffic. Target adopted a similar strategy. These discount retailers did not require the full range of 18,000 stock-keeping units. Their approach relied on increasing customer visits. The more significant development was the growth of the Internet as a retail channel. In 2000, Toys R Us entered into an exclusive 10-year agreement with Amazon to serve as the primary toy seller on the platform. The arrangement involved payments of tens of millions of dollars annually to Amazon and the redirection of the company's online traffic. The decision was viewed as a way to manage digital operations without disrupting the physical business. The outcome was that Amazon gained detailed knowledge of the supply chain, pricing structures, and customer information. Amazon then permitted third-party sellers, including manufacturers such as Hasbro and Mattel, to sell directly on the platform. The exclusive arrangement limited Toys R Us's options. A legal dispute followed. The company achieved a technical victory in 2006, but the period of e-commerce development had been lost. The company that established the category killer format had transferred critical capabilities to its future competitor. Meanwhile, the store, the format that had been innovative in 1957, began to appear dated in comparison to the brighter and more curated environments of competitors. The threat developed through gradual reductions in convenience and perceived value rather than direct confrontation. Timing remained central to the changing dynamics. By the early 2000s, the company remained profitable but displayed signs of operational stress. Leadership changes occurred following the founders' reduced involvement. Pressure increased to sustain growth in line with Wall Street expectations. The physical stores, once central to the model, showed signs of aging. Capital expenditure on maintenance and upgrades was deferred. The online initiative had been outsourced and was not performing. As planned, the organizational focus shifted from customer experience to meeting quarterly financial targets. Product selection was adjusted to prioritize margins. The distinctive elements of the original model began to diminish. The deeper issue was one of perspective. Executives continued to regard the company as the market disruptor rather than the entity now facing disruption. Walmart was viewed as a pricing challenge that could be addressed through improved purchasing terms. The internet was treated as an additional sales channel rather than a fundamental change in retail structure. No senior leadership fully acknowledged that the category killer approach, built on physical scale and limited consumer options, was losing relevance in an environment of unlimited digital choice and faster delivery. Confidence in past success had replaced the original focus on market adaptation. The most significant challenges resulted from two major decisions, separated in time but linked in effect. The first involved the 2000 agreement with Amazon. By outsourcing e-commerce operations, the company effectively ceded control over the primary shift in consumer purchasing behavior since the introduction of the supermarket format. When the partnership ended, the company's own digital platform was underdeveloped. With limited functionality and inventory, customers who had begun purchasing toys through Amazon did not return to the original retailer. The second decision was the 2005 leveraged buyout. Bain Capital (KKR) and Vornado Realty Trust acquired the company for $6.6 billion. The transaction placed nearly $5 billion in debt directly on the company's balance sheet. The private equity firms received substantial fees and dividends. Annual interest obligations reached $400 to $500 million. This structure transformed the company's financial priorities. Every strategic choice was evaluated against the requirement to service debt. Investments in store renovations, e-commerce, development, employee development, and expanded inventory were reduced. The cash flow that could have supported adaptation to digital retail was directed to debt obligations and financial returns for the new owners. Leadership transitioned from product and customer focus to debt management. Cost reduction replaced innovation as the guiding principle. Store environments deteriorated, product selection narrowed. Pricing flexibility was limited because margins were constrained by interest payments, reducing the ability to match competitors on value. Equity owners operated with a 5 to 7 year horizon focused on realization of returns. The company's original orientation had been toward long-term market leadership. Missed opportunities accumulated. These included the failure to develop or acquire a competitive digital platform at an earlier stage, the delay in updating store formats, and the inability to respond aggressively to Walmart on price while the balance sheet still permitted it. Board-level perspective maintained that the established brand would endure by 2013. The internal True Transformation Initiative was introduced, but the debt burden had already restricted execution capacity. The issues were structural arising from the shift in ownership, priorities, and psychological stemming from the assumption that past dominance guaranteed future viability. Once momentum shifted, the decline accelerated. Holiday periods saw reduced performance. Suppliers, recognizing the change in financial position, required cash-on delivery terms. The company that had once set terms for manufacturers now depended on their willingness to ship product. Debt obligations consumed cash that would otherwise have supported inventory levels. Store environments showed increasing signs of reduced stock. On September 18, 2017, the company filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. The filing cited $5 billion in long-term debt and affected operations involving 64,000 employees worldwide. It was presented as a restructuring effort, but the underlying financial position indicated a more fundamental challenge. In March 2018, liquidation was announced. More than 800 U.S. stores were affected, resulting in the loss of 33,000 positions. The final sales process required disposal of all inventory and assets. The brand elements that had defined the company were included in the clearance. The last U.S. store closed on June 29, 2018. The conclusion extended beyond financial metrics. The retailer that had positioned itself around the concept of extended childhood encountered the limits of its own continuity in a public manner. Private equity participants realized returns through the earlier financial arrangements. The company that had shaped toy retail for decades was reduced to a reference point in industry, discussions, and public memory. The brand continued in modified form. International operations remained active in certain markets. In 2019, the remaining assets were restructured under True Kids brands, smaller format stores, pop-up locations, and partnerships for store with. Store concepts with retailers such as Macy's and Target were tested. A flagship location opened briefly at the American Dream Mall. Some revival efforts were affected by the impact of COVID-19 as of 2025 to 2026. New partnerships in Latin America and selected U.S. concessions operate under ownership by WHP Global. Geoffrey the Giraffe continues to appear in promotional material. The intellectual property supports licensing arrangements. The original model of large-scale big-box stores that defined the category is no longer present. What remains consists of the brand recognition, selected operational experiments, and the role of the case as an illustration of retail evolution. Toys R Us illustrates several consistent patterns in business strategy. First, any format can itself become the target of disruption when market conditions change. The model that produced dominance can limit visibility of new requirements. Second, high levels of debt introduced through leveraged transactions restrict flexibility, precisely when adaptation is most needed. The 2005 buyout converted a strong balance sheet into a constraint on investment at the moment. Digital retail required capital. Financial engineering of this type prioritizes short-term extraction over long-term operational resilience. Third, timing determines outcomes in retail. The 2000 partnership with Amazon represented a decision to transfer control of the emerging channel to a developing competitor. The result was the loss of independent capability during the critical period of consumer shift. The underlying dynamic was the replacement of market-oriented vision with financial metrics. The founder focused on consumer behavior. Later leadership concentrated on balance sheet management. One created the position, the other managed its constraints. The central observation is that businesses do not fail primarily because of external competition. They fail when they lose the capacity to confront changing realities while resources and influence remain available for adjustment. Toys R Us did not lose a contest over toys. It encountered the consequences of decisions that traded adaptability for financial structure. The case invites consideration of current market leaders. What assumptions about permanent advantage might limit their ability to evolve in the next phase of retail?